Welcome back to Unapologetic and Free. Today we are here with another episode of You Don't Know My Story. And I am very excited about the guest that we have today. Her name is Laurie Graham. She is a branding strategist, speaker, and founder of Boss Babe Creatives and Visuals. With over 20 years of experience in design, marketing, and luxury real estate, she helps women in real estate and home staging build brands rooted in purpose, clarity, and confidence. Guided by faith, Lori teaches business owners how to show up boldly, attract aligned clients, and build businesses that reflect both their calling and their values. And I love that. And so before we get too far into this, we are excited for her to share her story. I just have to share with you all that Lori and I are long time friends. Long time friends. So I'm super excited to have her on here to share her story. But I want you all to know that Laurie Graham is the reason that I gave my life to Jesus Christ. If you have not watched You Don't Know My Story, I talk about a friend whose life had changed so dramatically that she told me about this Jesus at the time that she had fell in love with and that had completely changed her life. That I packed up all my stuff and moved to a little town called Roseman, California, so that I can learn and find out. And so I really do. I never will forget the life transformation that took place in her life, her just being willing to share Jesus with me. And because of that, it changed my life for the better. And so at this time, Lori, please go ahead and share your story with us.
Well, first of all, thank you. I don't know why I felt emotional about that. I think like as we get older and we go through life, we forget that those little things are so giant in the kingdom of God, right? Like oh yeah, we tell a friend or we share with a friend something, and it's just so good to hear it because you kind of just like it happens and you just keep living life. So thank you for that. And yes, we go way back like lumberjack, like so far back.
I know.
And in the same way, you and your mom gave me and my son a place to stay when I didn't have somewhere to live. So, I mean, it goes both ways, and so grateful for that. And so, I guess when you think about like, you don't know my story, when you asked me to participate in this, I was like, well, I'm old. Like, I got a lot of stories. Which one do you want? And so, the one that the Lord really just put on my heart to share is about this last chapter of my life where I built my business. But I have to also take it back to way back in the day when we knew each other. You know, I was in an abusive relationship. I was barely making it. I was super controlled. And it literally took an act of God for me to get out of that relationship and move me to California where my parents lived. And when I got there, there was a church on the hill in that little city of Roseman. And I said, okay, Lauren, I'm going to give it all to you. And that was like a radical change in my life. And sometimes it's scary telling people about Jesus and all of those things because you never know how they're going to react. But it's such a blessing to be able to come back and watch your life and all the things that have happened in your life and all of the things God has done. So, like, it's really exciting. And I guess that's probably why I felt emotional. But so growing up, like in my teen years, not to mention being in an abusive relationship, but before that, your girl got pregnant by the gardener at her high school, had a son. He didn't want nothing to do with him. And so then I started, I got a job to take care of my son, single mama, but then I met a guy there and he was abusive and it just turned into this horrible thing. So that is important into my story because the things that happened to me when I was younger are the things that held me back from believing I could start my own business, right? It's the lies that we believe. It's other people's opinions that get put on us. It's what people project onto us that then stop us from doing what God has called us to. And I wrote it down because I'm really bad at remembering Bible verses, but in James 14 says 17, I recently read this and I was like, oh, it says like, if you know what you're supposed to do and you don't do it, that is a
Yes.
sin. And I'm like, oh, that's so hard. I mean, that could be like, you told your husband you can take the trash out and you didn't do it, or it could be something much larger, right?
That's right.
And so fast forward like I worked at corporate. I worked in a corporate job. I worked in real estate for 7 years. And then from there, my husband and I moved to Texas, where I think you're at now. And I worked for a company there. And then we only stayed there for 2 years, came back to California, and I continued working there for another 7 years. Well, towards the end of that, the Lord was really saying, like, it was a tough situation. It was not a healthy work environment. And because of the abuse that I had experienced growing up, I kind of like, I would know who I was in Christ, but then I would allow people to treat me a certain way or make excuses for narcissist behavior because, right? I wasn't truly healed in that moment. And it got so bad after like in year 5 of that. And it was like, literally my family was telling me I was a different person. I wasn't happy. But I just kept pushing through because that's what single mamas do that, eventually got married and have a wonderful marriage. But that's what you do is you're almost in the mode of just keep pushing. And then you think about things later and you start to neglect your own mental health, your own physical health, and you make reasons for it. So at the end of year 6 in that company, me and the owner started really bumping heads because I couldn't align with the messaging that she was putting out there for the business. And at that time, I was the VP of operations. So I was at the very top. There was nowhere else I could go. There was no different division that I could go into. It was her and me. And my husband and my friends all kept telling me, start your own business, start your own business. You've ran this business for 6 years. Why can't you start your own business? And it was such a hard thing for me. And so I kept fighting it. And of course, when my husband would tell me, I would be like, no. But then when your best friend tells you, you're like, you think I can? You think I can really do it? Right? I mean,
Right.
it goes both ways, right? We tell our husbands things, they don't listen. And then their friend tells them, like, best idea ever. So it came to the point where the Lord really intervened. And the thing about that is that my boss is also a Christian, but we were bumping heads like just going back and forth, and I didn't want to say anything to her, and then she would love bomb me, and then she would bring me back down. And so she actually said to all of our staff, hey, you all should have a work but also have a side job, like another source of income, right? So it
Okay.
was almost like the Lord used her saying that to me to be like, okay, well, maybe I'll start doing this side thing, which is social media for home stagers, social media branding, which was the market that I was already in. I was coaching them on business stuff, but my sweet spot is like branding and social media and photography and visuals. So I let her know, hey, this is what I'm going to do because you told me to do it. And immediately she was like, well, then I need 10% of your business. And I was like, not a referral, just 10% of my business in general, right? And it did not sit right with me. And at that moment, that had gone back and forth for a while. I was in therapy. I was having panic attacks. I literally had to have conversations with her and like put a post-it over her face because I worked remotely so that I couldn't see her, but I was saying the right things I needed to say because I was so intimidated or fearful of the future. And so the night before it all came to a head kind of mimics back to the abuse that I used to endure when I was in my abusive relationship. I went to bed and I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. And when I wake up and I tell you, I had a choke mark on my neck when I woke up in that morning. And I looked and I was like, what is this a hive? What is this? It reminded me of the moment before my parents came and rescued me from my abusive relationship. My ex had choked me out because I wouldn't give him money. He literally put a phone cord around my neck and choked me and said that if I didn't give him the money, that he would kill me, right? So of course I gave him the money. I got on my knees, I threw my hands in the air and I said, Lord, I don't want to live like this. I cannot live like this. And in that moment, a phone in my safe room, in my son's room, rang, and it was my mom saying, "Hey, me and your dad are coming to get you," right? The rescue. And I looked in the mirror, and I have a picture of this on my phone because there's no way, it was just the perfect, you could see the hands and the thumb. And what I took that as is God reminding me, you are literally being choked out here. You are
Mm.
not doing what you're supposed to do. So the next day, I stood my ground with her, and she eventually let me go. She had to literally let me go because I was too afraid and not strong enough or bold enough to say, no, I'm not giving you 10% of my business, and I'm going to go start this business on my own because I didn't believe in myself. And it took that moment of looking back to something that was familiar to me, and I knew that God rescued me out of to rescue me out of this situation, and basically my stubbornness. Like, I just would not listen to the Lord, and he was using everybody. The only thing that he didn't do is, like, I kept telling people, I just wish he'd write it in the sky and say, just do it, Laurie. Like,
Right.
no. But then what kind of faith is that, right? So I was literally
Right.
lacking faith. So the next day I was done. I stopped working there after 7 years. That boss totally sent out letters, bad things about me, saying I was doing all of this stuff. And the Lord told me, you be quiet and let me handle this. You just build your business. And that is how I came up with the tagline for my business: go and build a business, or go boldly, boss babe, build the business you love. Like, because I didn't go boldly until the end. And then I knew, like, okay, Lord, I'm going to go boldly for you. And then I had been in this industry where I see women, mostly women in the home staging industry, they are so frustrated being like a solopreneur or running a small business. It's exhausting for them, and something that they started because they loved it then turns into a problem, and then they end up not liking their business anymore. But if I can come in and help them take a load off of a certain part of their business, that helps them build something that they really love and they can be proud of. And so I immediately replaced my salary. I've got speaking engagements. I was in an anthology. Um, I I've grown the business. Like, I'm still here. I'm not having to work a 9 to 5, although a lot of times I'm like, should I just get a job? Because it's nervous and it's scary. But the bigger picture I wanted to share with people is, you don't know the story, because I think some people may look at me, they don't know that I was in an abusive relationship. They don't know the kind of life I lived back then. They
Right.
don't know that I stuck it out in a corporate job that I hated for so long. I mean, I loved part of it, but the second half of it, God was telling me to leave, and I wouldn't do it and I wouldn't listen. They don't know that part of my story. They just see me up here, telling them, to build a business they love and all the stuff, but they also don't see the turmoil that goes into it, and the everyday having to make a decision to keep running the business, keep trying, keep pressing into God, keep going even when you don't know what's going to happen, or, what the next thing, or if you're going to get a new client or a client's going to leave you. But it all, for me, boils down to my faith in God. And honestly, ever since I started my own business, I have never been in my word more. I have never felt closer, like physically closer. Like, I would do the church thing and serve at church and do all of that, but I always still had this little feeling where I was like, am I really in? Like, am I, or am I just doing the actions? But it took me starting my own business, being obedient, and ridiculously scared that I wasn't going to have enough money to pay the bills, or I was going to let somebody down, in order to have that closeness with God. And so, any woman out there or guy that really wants to take the leap of faith and they feel like they're supposed to, don't wait as long as me. Trust the process, trust God, because I always knew I could do it. I was just afraid to, because of what I allowed into my life. And the last thing I'll share is, part of starting my own business. I did counseling, but I also did this 2 day deep dive class with this woman called named Coach Cherie. She works with high functioning women over 40, And she literally digs deep, so deep, you're so uncomfortable. And you're like, are you kidding me right now? She starts the 2 days. It's all about your purpose and becoming the woman that you're supposed to be, because high functioning women tend to take care of everybody else. We take care of our husbands, our kids, our families, our business, our friends, our whatever, before we actually take care of us. And then bitterness roots in our heart, and that's not good, right? So I wanted to make sure that as I'm building my business, my heart is right. Like I am right. I'm healed. I'm not taking the bitterness from my corporate job into my actual business. And she taught me this theory, and I love it. It's been a life changer. She went through the 2 days and she kept saying this to me, Laurie, is that the story you're telling yourself or is that fact? And I would be like,
Mm.
well, if so, the story is our excuses. Like, oh, well, because this happened, or it's because so and so said this about me. They said I couldn't. Is that the story or is that the fact? And then she even broke it down deeper for me. She was like, the story basically is the lie we tell ourselves and the enemy tells us, because he's going to keep telling us those lies in our ears. But the fact is something that you can work on. So, I use this a lot of time now in my business. I'm like, is the fact that you don't have money, you need money for like inventory for your business or for payroll, that might be a fact. You might not have the cash flow, right? However, what is a workaround or work to that fact? So how can you earn more money? What things can you do? The fact might be this, but there's always a way to work around it. But so many
That's
times
good.
we tell ourselves a story, and I use it in my marriage. Like, I'm like, is that a fact? Or is that a story you're telling yourself? That's the story. Like, or if you're like, even just friends with people, or like, well, I figure if they want to talk to me, they'll call me. Is that a fact or is that the story that you're telling yourself, right? It was the most powerful thing. And so if anybody struggles with that, I would definitely think about your fact and your story, because your fact can always be fixed, but your story is always going to be what's holding you back. So that's my story.
I do have a follow-up question, if you mind sharing. What role did your husband play in this process, and how long have you been married, and did you feel like your professional work affected your marriage at all?
Um, been married almost 20 years. You were there. And my husband is, I tell people this all the time, he's my peace. He is, uh, I'm kind of like an extroverted introvert. Like I'm cool just being by myself, but in like places where there's a lot of people or whatever, I'm going to be a wallflower unless I'm in charge of something like a leadership role. Then I could be like all bubbly, right? So he is just my peace. No matter what happens, I know I can just go to him. He is my peace, my protector, all of that. During, like, he would get super upset with my boss, but obviously it's not his place to say something. At first, he would be like, you need to do this. Don't let her talk. And then I make the story or the excuse of, oh, well, she's having a bad day or this or that. And, he's just kind of like, you're better than that. You need to start your own business. It didn't hinder, well, I would say it would slightly hinder our marriage, because I used to travel a lot, and being away from him, kind of, you're not together as much. But one of the things, she would never speak to her husband while we were traveling. I need to speak to my husband like 10 times a day, right? But I would be afraid to pick up the phone and call him because she's not calling him. So I felt like, oh, well, I should just be working. And that's not a healthy marriage, right? Like, no
Right.
relationship, if you're not connecting on a regular basis, like, what kind of relationship? So he was very patient and understanding with me. And then obviously when it was at the end, he was kind of like my rock. Like he would sit over like in my office, half the office is my office, half is his office, and he would just sit there because I almost like my protector, but like I'm a big girl, I could do it myself. So, but since I've left and started my own business, we're married 20 years. So, like, there's always different seasons of marriage. We're in a great season of marriage now. Our son's married and off doing his life. We have my mother in law lives with us, and we're in a great season, but it's opened opportunity for us to work together, which we're a really strong couple that works together. And so that's been amazing. So it has actually helped us become closer in our marriage, and also like business wise, we really play off of each other because he's the technical and I'm the creative. So he helps me with all the hard technical stuff.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So when you look back, as shared your story, and you may have touched on it, but just to give that takeaway, right? Like, what is it that you want listeners, or you want people who don't know your story, or anyone out there that might find themselves in the same situation you're in? What would you say to them?
Well, if they have a relationship with Christ, I would say he is your foundation, and it doesn't matter what happens around you. I think that's the thing we struggle with, is even as Christians, we still don't want a life that is less than, and we don't want to struggle. But Jesus literally calls people to a struggle, right? And our focus a lot of times doesn't come on stay on what happens to us after we pass this life. We're focused on ourselves now. So if you do have a relationship, you have got to trust him if he's calling. Some ways that like I always tell people, you know your purpose when you feel it in your gut. When it is just like when I'm speaking or I'm at an event, and sometimes like I black out. I don't even know what I'm saying. Like I plan it and all of that stuff, but like you don't really remember back because I feel like the Holy Spirit's taken over, and that is just what's happening. So you know that thing. Oh, everything in your life, your gut kind of tells you about it, whether it's good or bad, right? So if you know that something's calling you, something that you want to do, you have to trust the Lord. Now, if maybe you don't have a relationship with Christ, I still think life is a journey. Go for it. Go boldly. Don't allow anybody's opinions, the way you were raised, what people say about you, even when you're building your business or going to that next thing in your life, you literally have to have blinders on. You have to stay so focused on what your goal is because there's so many distractions. And don't waste the time because as we both know, we've lost both of our mamas. Like tomorrow is not promised. It's not. So, I mean, my husband's really good at reminding me, like, if I'm being too, like, oh, we shouldn't do that investment because what if we don't have the money, or what if something happens, I lose a client? He's like, YOLO, we only live once. We'll figure it out. And every time it's
That's
been
good.
fine, right? So
Yeah.
I just don't want people to live off of the story that's been told to them. I want them to live off the purpose that God's given them.
That's great. And what do you enjoy the most about your business and what you do? And please share with us what it exactly it is and whatever you want to talk about as it relates to your business itself.
I think that, okay, I love making people look good. That's basically what I do. So I work with home stagers. Those are people who, if you have a house for sale and you're going to move out of it and it's vacant, they come and they put the furniture in. It looks all beautiful and wonderful. The thing about that, which can also articulate to your actual life, is there's this phrase called perceived value. Okay. And the perceived value is like when you're selling a house, buyers will walk in, and if there's nice, beautiful furniture, everything makes sense. The perceived value of that property is higher than if they just walk in and they're like confused, right? Well, in the staging industry, realtors still don't really take home stagers too seriously, but I come in and I partner with them in all of their visuals, their social media, their blogs. I don't do websites, but I have a partner that does everything that they see about the business when they go to investigate the business. I mean, even think about the last company that you had to hire and you investigated. If you went to their socials or their website and it looked janky, you're losing a little you're like, meh, I don't think so. But if it looks super professional, your perceived value of them is that they're going to do a good job. That's what I do. I make sure that my clients look good, they look professional, and they're attracting their ideal clients. So that's social media. I do brand photography. We do the real estate photography. I do design photography. I coach people. I speak life into people. I speak on stages. I do all of that. And I think the thing I love the most is that I kind of just always feel like I'm pulling out their purpose. They already have it
Yes.
because they're
Yes.
doing the work. right? Like they're making the homes look beautiful. They may not know how to take their own pictures of it, or they may not have, they may hate social media and not want to do it. But it's so easy to me to do it. And it makes sense to me. And I do believe that each of us have gifts and talents that God gives. So I feel like one of my gifts and talents is vision. Like I literally have vision for people when they're talking to me. It's a movie in my head. Like I'm not listening as much as I'm watching the movie in my head when I talk to
That's
them.
good.
And so I think that's the best thing about my business. And then having the flexibility of working at home. Last week I worked in Vegas all week. They had a big that's where all the stagers go to buy their furniture and inventory. It's called Las Vegas Market. I worked there all weekend, or all week, had a blast. I can do what I want. I'm able to be available for my mother-in-law, for my son and his wife. And so it's really, I mean, yes, it's scary sometimes, sometimes, it gets a little tight, but I'm doing what God's called me to do. So, yeah.
That's good. That's good. How can we find you?
Bossbabecreative.com or on Instagram, bossbabecreative_.
Perfect, perfect. Well, thank you so much for sharing
You're
your story
welcome.
with us. I do just have a nosy question. When you're saying we, do you have a team? I know you mentioned having a partner that does the websites, but are you the one doing the socials? You're the one going and taking the pictures? Do you
Me and my
foresee?
husband. Yeah.
Okay.
Me and my husband. Mostly me, but I just started doing the real estate photography, but before that, he was the only one doing it, but just so that we could have more business, it was another thing I didn't want to do. I just want to do the fun creative stuff, and he was like the technical and setting the camera up and the right settings, and I resisted learning that for so long. But then I was like, you know what, if we want to scale, we both need to learn. I need to learn. And then but he does do all of our videography. We do have some clients that are outside that realm. So, like, mostly it's staging and real estate. But we also have clients where we do like documentary style corporate videos and
Okay.
stuff. And that's more his side that he does production wise. So, that's the we in Boss Babe Creative.
Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing again. And we will put all of her contact information in the show notes. Again, I love you. You're a dear friend. I'm just grateful that you said yes. I always like to acknowledge when we reach out and we ask people, everybody doesn't have to say yes. So the fact that you said yes, I'm grateful and I appreciate it. And I believe that your story will inspire and encourage so many people, right? Because it just comes down to having faith in God, and even listening to you and where I am in my life, just encouraging me that, okay, I need to make some different choices and know what it is that I want to do. And I felt like I could relate and resonate with your story and what you were sharing. So thank you so much for sharing that. Do you have any last
Thank
minute
you.
things you would like to say or share before we
Well,
end
I
tonight?
always try to end everything with our tagline: go boldly, boss babe, and build a life or a business that you love.
Perfect.